Hello. Today's been it's been an interesting day. Got a reasonable amount of filming done, which has been great. But it's been a difficult one as well from a work standpoint. But let's not get into all of that. Sorry, my throat's a little bit sore. So, I heard something particularly interesting this morning. So somebody sent me a meme saying that metalheads are people cosplaying as nasty people that are nice people, and hippies are people cosplaying as nice people are actually nasty people. It got me to thinking a lot about people's perceptions of each other and how that is actually somewhat true, and a lot of people's intent at the moment seems to be quite subversive. I'm not to say that I'm completely isolated from that when I say and do things. Obviously, sometimes we all have our own agendas to do things, but I try not to do that. I try to be as authentic as possible, especially around this stuff. I don't try to portray myself as anything other than who I am. Mostly because I don't perhaps shoot myself in the foot. I don't really have any value to people seeing me as anything other than who I am, and that can be counterproductive in a lot of respects if you're very career and money focused. That's not to say that I'm not career focused. Obviously I am. I require a job. I'm not independently wealthy yet. That would be lovely, but the reality of the situation is I'm not, and I don't try to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. I have my own priorities, and those may not align with society's in general, which is interesting because a lot of this white knighting that society does seems to be around of those social norms and social priorities, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think a lot of it is quite pointless, and there are better, more efficient ways to get to those ends, but I think in terms of community, they're actually counterproductive. And being authentic to yourself and accepting that people should be allowed to be themselves without any judgment from other people would be more beneficial than having this overly accepting society where you're not allowed to be yourself, or you have to somewhat unsincerely say that you agree with somebody just because you don't want to cause an argument, or you're scared that somebody's reaction to you not agreeing with them will be confrontational. And that's crossing over into my work life to some extent with how I talk about tactics and strategy inside of what I do work-wise. People assume a lot, people think a lot without having quantifiable data to back up those assumptions. I try to bring that into my personal life and certainly into all of the things that I do to develop myself. And that can sometimes irk people, especially when the data, which is irrefutable, proves counter to what their assumptions or thoughts may be, especially when there's a differential in seniority there, which is an interesting dynamic to have. I'd be interested to see, or hear, what does that mean? I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has had that sort of conversation with people. Now, it's not a negative in any way, shape or form, don't get me wrong. And I've not had any, to my face at least, any negative reprisals from what I say, suggest, use the word prove through the use of data. but it may not be beneficial in the long run. And I wonder how much of that I need to accept is going to impact my larger career prospects, because it doesn't sit well with me to keep my mouth shut, to be honest. And it's all right to have those conversations with people where there's little risk of economic reprisal, I suppose. I was going to say having those conversations with my wife or with my parents, but there is an economic reprisal there as well, somewhat ironically. But I think having those conversations at a professional level with people is interesting, and it's something that I've never really shied away from. But as I've progressed both in age and career, it's something that's become increasingly important for me to be able to tackle at a higher level, almost, if that makes some sort of sense, that being able to convey that information in a non-confrontational but informative way that will empower others to make decisions based off of that, when those decisions might not normally be needed to be made, but are important to progress to a next stage of development for something or something, someone or something. I think that's important, but not comfortable, not in the slightest bit comfortable. And what I do struggle with is I don't want to use the word empathy, but having the empathy then to listen to a person's realization that they were wrong. I'm very much of a mindset where if somebody tells me something and then says, this is wrong, this is why it's wrong, look at this, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'll crack on with it and I'll do it this way instead. Thanks for that. That was really helpful. When people then try and backtrack to qualify their wrongness, no, not wrongness, to qualify decisions that had previously been made, that then is something that I find difficult to listen to. It's just like, own it. You were wrong at that point. You may not have always been wrong, but going in that direction like a steamroller and not considering anything else ever because you were right at one point really is difficult for me, because I'm invested in myself, I'm invested in what I do as a profession, and I'm invested in what we're selling as a product. In the larger sense, education is a privilege, and to not to do something based off of incorrect understanding is just odd to me. Not incorrect understanding, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, right? I'm gonna stop talking about it now because it's getting way too deep. But it's a good conversation. I enjoyed this chat, and yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for today and crack on. In fact, no, I'm not gonna crack on. I've cracked on all day. I'm gonna go home now, and I'm looking there for the camera, and it's not. The camera is there. I will get used to this. Oh well, it's because I keep changing cameras every freaking day. Right, I'm gone. Have a good evening. See ya.